if you see, like, you had all distance learning and so many things. You of course followed many apps and things like that. I mean, everyone. But why are you here at Columbia? Like, what's the sole reason? Because you
Yeah.
interact with the world class
Makes a fair
professors.
point. Yeah.
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 So, yeah.
I see.
आबरू जो बची है लुटा जाएगा आबरू जो बची है लुटा जाएगा
So how do you plan to take this forward? Like, because
Okay, let me tell you, like, so tell me about you. Like, what are you interested in? Like, what do you
Personally?
Yeah, personally, what do you want to become? What do you see yourself like? This is under future of work again.
Right.
So, what do you see yourself in? Like, maybe in 2030 or 2035. Like, how do you think?
Oh, okay. I remember when we were in middle school and high school, we'd do things like 2020 India. What does that look like? And it would be and you would draw like spacecrafts, just like flying saucers, people playing soccer underneath and flying saucers. Like we would be the most technologically advanced. Not happening.
Yeah.
You know. So like
we are
evidence-
technologically advanced.
I mean, for
like,
sure,
we are
yeah.
reaching 2020 and we have
Nothing.
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 We do have things.
We have Suhas, we have Prakhar, we have some people. But no, to be very honest, how I see myself is very interesting because I feel like, and again, I'm going to try and real time articulate this question because I've been thinking about it a lot for myself as well. And all of this, the podcast or the YouTube that I'm going to eventually come out with, or even the stuff that I do right now, what I study right now. I study economics and psychology, how that plays into all of that. So I sort of had like a vague idea that I would verbally say as to what I wanted to do, and then there was this intuitiveness of what I was. There was this stuff that I was doing underneath that had an intuitive cause to it, and I'm sort of trying to bridge the gap. I'm sort of trying to converge the two, right? So I'm basically trying to be more honest with my intuition, and this is what I think. I have forever been interested with solving puzzles. I grew up as a chess player. I played chess 15 years of my life from 3 to 18. I was a
Nice.
professional chess player, and the board fascinated me. On the board, there are barely any puzzles that you cannot solve, and the puzzles that you cannot solve end and begin with you starting a fresh game. So like there is always possibility on a 64 square board, and if there is possibilities with 64 squares, there is possibility with a 7.5 billion people, right? That's what my idea is. So I got very interested after my high school in talking to people, conversing with people, and then them coming out with stuff to talk about, and then me almost like giving sort of an input, learning, absorbing from them, and then probably what I learn from you, I may be able to offer the next guest, right? In that process, I figured out I loved solving real life puzzles more than loved solving puzzles on boards of inconsequential nature, right? So psychology seems to be a tool for me to understand how people think, because if I can understand how people think, I can at least begin to think better, help them think better, help them to come to a better point in their life, help them to understand the nature of their reality 1 degree better, if anything, right? And if I can do that on a larger level, then that plays out for me to become something like a politician. Economics is essential because psychology in a capitalist arena inevitably bleeds into numbers. You cannot just have psychology of words. That is not how it operates. Consumer behavior, business behavior, right? How do firms operate? Macro, micro, all of that just like plays into a very psychological aspect. The demand supply graph is psychology, right? If there's too much demand, you will inevitably have have higher prices, right? And if there's too much supply, there's so much availability. It's just, and I feel like if you could trace it back enough, there's an evolutionary reason for us assuming something is cheap just because it's too much. Because the difference between the male gamete and the female gamete, and this is purely evolutionary psychology, biology terms, you have millions of sperm in your ejaculation. Women have 400 eggs. That's all, right? The act of them being involved in sex is more expensive than the act of us being involved in sex. It's cheaper for us, right?
Okay.
That's why rape laws, at least heterosexually speaking, operate in a one direction from a female standpoint. And that's a very controversial opinion. Like, I feel like, but that's fair. Like, it's controversial, but it's fair in my opinion. But for us, sex is way cheaper. We automatically, intuitively perceive something which is of high availability to be cheaper. And that's why I study economics. I, in my naive childhood dream, plan to solve the puzzles of the world.
Okay.
Right? And I use religion as something, at least the religious framework as something to understand that. And I use like the psychological framework to understand that, and the literary framework and the economic framework. That's my angle. But what is your angle? Because I really want to understand why you keep saying serving the people. Like, where is that coming from?
Okay. This is a...
Why? What is this fascination with serve my people, serve the country?
You hit the point.
Yeah.
So So I belong to a family of serving people. So when I say this, it's like
You
uh,
belong to a family of domestic servants?
no, no, no,
No,
no,
okay.
no, 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 no.
I'm messing with you.
Okay. So my father's side of family, they were all freedom fighters at one point of time, who actually trained Subhash Chandra Bose, and we are also kind of distant relatives to Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and it's kind of all freedom fighters.
Oh, by the way, Subhash Chandra Bose and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel were one of the greatest freedom fighters in the struggle for freedom in India back in the 40s and the 30s and the
Yeah.
20s. Uh-huh.
And that is my grandmother's brother, maybe, like, what his name is Kameshwara.
Oh, okay.
And he was the trainer for all these freedom fighters, like in
Hey.
the army and things like that.
Mm.
So he was a great freedom fighter when it comes to a state of Andhra Pradesh, that's South India.
Mhm.
So he was that, and my mom's side family were all government servants,
Mhm.
in a maybe like IAS officers, collectors,
Bureaucrats.
and, bureaucrats, and also uh, ministers at one
Right.
point of time.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, my mom's father, that's my grandfather. He was in charge for all the transportation system in India, how convenient transportation should be for people and things like that. So maybe, and yeah, more than that, my grandfather was a high school headmaster.
Mm.
My father's father, he's like a high school headmaster, government high school headmaster. He was into teaching field. My dad also at one point of time was into teaching field, and this what made me enter into Indian education system in my non-profit. So I guess that's more of an inspiration of serving people
Mhm.
at various levels.
So you sort of like inherit that value from your
Yes,
family
I do
system.
that.
And where do you want to take it? Because I'm very curious about that. Where do you essentially see this going?
Okay, so after coming to Colombia, I started seeing this more like a serving people and as a profitable thing. Like I have to involve both of them, because at the end of the day, to serve people, you need like
Money.
profit, money, and cost, and there are so many things associated with that.
Right.
And maybe, yeah, I mean, I'll see like I have to go balance each. I mean, hand in hand,
Right.
both those things. So yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So do you plan to like continue this once like we've already discussed how you plan on going back home and then continue doing something similar along the lines? Do you plan on continuing running with your NGO into government circles and like helping that, or is there a different stream that you want to explore once you're back home?
Once I'm back home, I
Uh-huh.
wanna get into more of having businesses and things like that.
Right.
And of course, that'll have again foundations and non-profits and things like that. So
Mhm.
as I said, it's both the money and serving people.
So basically, you want to be able to create money enough to then push it down to
Push it down to
the
foundations
people.
and
Okay,
things like
that's incredible, man. Such a noble thing that you think of. And how do you plan to tie in your degree here? Like when you study economics and computer science, how do you plan on making that work? Like how does that work into all of this?
Okay, I guess I told you this before,
Mhm.
if I'm not wrong.
Have you in the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
interview? Am I stoned? No, I'm not. Just tell me.
Okay.
No, but like
So-
you mentioned, like how
How I'll use economics towards people,
Right.
like understanding the policies,
Right.
and why computer science will be more of digitalization of the policies that I do. So
I
I want
see.
to incorporate both in my knowledge base, so that I can do better things in life.
That's incredible, man. That's flattering. Okay, I see that. I see that. What do you think about the current political scenario back home? Like, what do you think about that?
Oh, this is a major thing which I don't want to
Address?
address into, because being a part of Y20 and the governments and things
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. So I don't think
You don't.
I'll be
You,
able
you cannot
to,
have a partisan side.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
secretly
of
you're
course,
an
of course,
fan.
I can say that I like Modi or I like Shashi Tharoor.
See?
Or, so basically,
Secretly
no,
he's a
no, no, no,
genocidist too.
let me keep it in a unique way, maybe like something which I believe in.
Uh-huh.
I don't believe in political parties. I
Right.
believe in the selected group of people in the parties.
Right.
Like you see Shashi Tharoor,
Right.
who's like
Very
who
well read.
speaks like, I mean, you speak like Shashi Tharoor.
Oh
The
my
vocabulary.
bro! I'm gonna cut. We got to cut. We got to get this cut. Not happening. Okay.
Okay.
Shashi Tharoor is fascinating as an individual.
Yeah, so
He
I
really
like
is
him
so
in
knowledgeable.
Congress. He's of a Congress party. I like him, and I like few other politicians in BJP.
Uh-huh.
So there are like selected few officials which I like from different parties.
Right.
So it's not like one political scenario which I could say.
Right.
So I don't
Right.
believe in the prime minister. I believe in the people
Who
like,
work for-
number of qualified people in that party that makes the party more
Ah.
successful.
Wow, that's a
So-
nuanced view on the whole thing. I
Yeah.
see. Okay.
And I think it was more diplomatic also.
No, I mean it's honestly I think nuance begets diplomacy on some level because you see it's like diplomacy is the antithesis to a black and white, to a binary, right? Where you are basically building a middle ground, and that middle ground comes with when you address the nuance, when you talk about the minute details that exist,
True.
right? And for somebody who's been interested in the Indian political scenario for as long as I have been, or as long as I've pretended to be, I do not necessarily see myself having that sort of a nuance. That's like, I mean, that's commendable. So as I'm also curious about like, how do you see the future of India panning out in terms of like the education policy? What is like your ideal What is like your ideal idea of the education policy or like the sustainable development policies in India?
Okay, the education policies you can see as of now in India, there are many, as you said, as you mentioned earlier, it's more of the digital apps, e-learning systems which are coming into place. But I'm wondering how far it'll be successful because we had one of the. Do you know about the Educom Smart class
Yeah,
in back
yeah.
in India? Maybe you can explain viewers about Educom in a sentence.
I mean, I can only pretend to know so much about it, but EduCom started somewhere when I was in school as well, and it was basically this video-based learning program where you had animations and video explanations, and you know what you cannot recreate in reality. They would help you understand, imagine that. Say for instance, a concept of physics where electric current is being explained and the flow of electric current through conductors, right? And you cannot visualize it for obvious reasons. You can measure it on both ends, but you cannot visualize it, right? They would help us like almost visually learn stuff that was not easily visualizable. But what's up with EduCamp?
Yeah, so if you see Educom at once upon a time, people thought such apps, such programs might be like just change the revolutionize Indian educational system, change the way like the schooling system works, or maybe replace the teachers, replace professors, and we'll have only the smart class going on and things like that. But if you see, Educom went bankrupt.
Oh, it did?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I was expecting it, so I shouldn't act so surprised. But no, so it went bankrupt.
It went bankrupt. It's because I won't say bankrupt, but in many situations it failed.
Mhm.
So the thing is, I don't think even in future idea like my non-profit, like student to student teaching, or maybe like such e-classes, or maybe so many things like that, cannot replace a professor teaching a student. It can never replace like a direct interaction.
Right.
And even in macroscopic level, the policies are geared towards increasing the wages or the salaries for the teachers and the professors. So I don't think it won't be outdated at all. So but yeah, we will have many supplements given to the normal education system is what I think the future of education is.
When you say the future of education, do you imagine it your lifetime or do you imagine it beyond it as well? Because I'm pretty sure it's not like it's not when I imagine the future and I speak of future in the long run, I imagine almost all systems being replaced, the administrators of all system, people who manage systems being replaced by higher level computing systems or like AIs and stuff like that, and distance learning. Because the course that I did after school, my course in accounts and finance and my course in corporate law, all of the education was based on a distance learning program, and they would basically record professors giving those lectures and play it out for us at the same time, right? So it would be a class format pan India. It would be serving thousands of students at the same time. They'd be listening to the same lecture that was recorded in the past, right? So in that sense, as soon as the private sector was allowed to enter into education, because this was primarily private, they revolutionized it in this fashion. It was
True.
very, very effective. It was
Yeah.
very, very effective, at least as against the imaginable constraints that would come with a distance learning program,
True.
right? They were doing a damn fine job. But you seem to say that's not going to happen.
I mean, you will see increase in such distance courses and
But
everything.
you cannot eliminate the human
You
interaction.
cannot eliminate the human interaction. If you see, like, you had all distance learning and so many things, you of course followed many apps and things like that. I mean, everyone. But why are you here at Columbia? Like, what's the sole reason? Because you
Yeah.
interact with the world class
Makes a
professors.
fair point. Yeah.
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 So, yeah.
I see. It's also like when you trace it back enough into the history and then later into the future, when you try to imagine the future from a blueprint of the history, books, literature, and I mean any sort of literature, not just literature, right? Cave paintings were essentially a form of communicating the reality that people understood playing out in front of them, and they would represent it with the best sort of a language. Let me say the best semantic they had to communicate, the best syntax they had to communicate it as well. So like it started off as cave paintings and then it went on to become books and then published books. When who was the guy who came out? Gothenburg, Gutenberg. Gutenberg came out of the printing press, and with the printing press, the books started getting
Yeah.
published. So like education has always been a medium of first accumulation of knowledge and then passing it on. And I seem to still contend that we would eventually move to a place where it is more efficient and cheaper, and because cheaper is a very, very strong dynamic in our capitalist economies, right? Where education is being primed out of systems instead of professors who have sort of absorbed systems in their head. But you don't see that happening in India real quick. But what do you see the sustainable development angle going in India too? Like, what is that? Because there's a massive need for power in India, right? There's a majority of population that lives without power.
True. I mean, sustainable development, as you see, India had many goals for 2030 and things like that. For 2020, they wanted to install around, I don't remember the exact number, but few gigawatts of power they have to supply whole India. So that's what their goal is. But I'm pretty sure they're actually surpassing their own goal when it comes to installing the solar capacity and things like that. So yeah, I mean, every country is towards increasing the solar plants and transferring non-renewable to renewable energy. But the point is, renewable energy is actually expensive, like too expensive. But if research right now, as I see, there are many researches going on which are geared towards decreasing the cost of non-renewable energy resources. So you might actually debate between increasing the renewable energy sources or decreasing the price of non-renewable energy resources. So these are two different things, and there are two different teams which are fighting with each other indirectly on which should be
Which is more
aspect,
primary.
yeah, which
What
is more primary.
Yeah.
But I see both of them. I don't think non-renewable energy will be something which will be outdated very soon.
Yeah.
It will be something which might be developed in coming future. Or, yeah, it will be.
It's very interesting because I'm curious what part of the renewable energy chain of events is more expensive? Is it the research that goes into it? Is it like installing it? And how is it not negated against, like, so you have a cost benefit analysis, right? You have to negate the costs with the benefits. Is the benefit not negating the cost? Why is it such an expensive enterprise still?
Yeah, so now I understand the question better.
I should have always used the one sentence,
Yeah, I mean, okay, so let me just go off topic. So I was more into making things simpler.
Right.
Like at the end of the day, the thing should look simple.
Right.
Like, yeah, then it's easy for people to,
He just insulted me on my own show.
I was insulted too many times.
Okay, it's 1-1. I have to have you again now.
So
You asshole.
So it's like, what was the cost analysis.
Yeah.
So initially, India had, okay, why you're asking me why I'll major in economics? So this is one of the reasons. So technology, there are two aspects of cost when it comes to developing a system. One is technological cost, and second is the policy cost. So in the policy cost, it's because of the government, the taxes, and everything that makes things look pricey. Like things it becomes expensive. Like recently, 3 years ago, India's import cost for solar system was around 25% the amount, and then it came to 15%, then it came to 5%. Now it's free importing. So of course you'll see the boost in solar energy. That's how they surpass their own goals of installation capacity. So I think policies can have more effect than technology itself. So
really,
yes,
that's very contrary to the vein of thought that exists currently. Where I was of the opinion that almost everything is there is a unimaginable shift that we can have in the current reality, the current dynamic of our reality, in every sense of the word, as more and more and as better and better technology gets introduced. But I see there is a policy hand in hand that goes with it, right? And India sort of seems to lag on the policy formation metric of things, like we need to do that better. I don't think I have any more questions because I've understood quite a lot from you, man. There is just so much to absorb. But do you have any questions for me?
Questions?
On topic, off topic, anything. Anything is fine. Anything flies.
So
At
what
my
was the
shows.
most fascinating thing that you did in Colombia? That's something which you should have asked me, and which I should ask you.
No, you go ahead. Tell me. What is the
No,
most
no, no,
fascinating
First,
thing?
you should. I did ask you. So I mean, you should
The
tell
most
me.
fascinating thing I did at Columbia, it depends on what you mean by fascinating, but like, how do you construe fascinating?
I mean, which you consider to be most interesting, or maybe which is more.
I'll tell you. It's been a variety of it's a variety, right? It's a whole box, and I'll unpack some so that you can unpack some. There have been things that have fascinated me when I found out that I could do it without the resistance that I thought I'd be able to do it, right? So there has been stuff like for working for my club, working on this. It's so seamless, it's so smooth, the conversation's so natural, right? I have such a good time talking to my guests. I thought it would be harder than this. I am fascinated that it is not. I am fascinated that it comes
Nice.
naturally, and that's one angle of things, right? And this is all the personal stuff that I've done in terms of what I want to be working with. So I am more and more confident that my person, my individual, myself is very competent, or at least decently competent. On the other hand, there is some stuff that I've done on my personal end when it comes to, especially when it comes to managing, tackling fear, tackling insecurities, coming of age, making my bones. I made my bones here. I made my bones with the right kind of people here. I created a mindset here. I learned so much here. And I pushed myself every day. I pushed myself out of my system every day till I was where I wanted to be. And I feel like New York City is like a factory. I keep telling people that. I tell my parents that. I tell my friends back home. New York City is a factory. You do not get to misbehave there.
True.
You're a product of that factory. And for you to be the product, if you play by New York City's role, by its rules, it's going to swallow you, process you, and spit you out one day. And when it spits you out, you're going to be the man you always wanted to be. You're going to be a man you respect.
Nice.
Only if you play to its rules. Right? That's what I believe about it. But what is the most fascinating thing?
I know New York City is such a good thing, but yeah, I just realized
I do a good marketing job. Tell me, what's the most fascinating thing you've done?
The most fascinating thing that I have done on campus.
Walk into my friend's podcast show and tell him what questions to ask. That's the most fascinating thing that I have done. No, but tell me.
Okay. I mean, there are many things that I did on campus. Maybe something, I don't know.
I got involved with way too many political discussions on campus. Super fascinating, especially the Israel-Palestine angle of things. I was so not prepared for that shit, bro. We were tabling
You
for
had a better life at Columbia than me. Nice.
Clearly, man. I still didn't speak at the UN. I still didn't participate at the Y20. I was not a special guest nowhere. I'm just a cog in the functioning machinery.
You make people a special guest in your show.
I mean,
so that's something which is fascinating.
Bro, I honestly appreciate how humble you are, man. That's really flattering. But honestly, what's like one thing that you'd forever remember from your time at Columbia up until?
Okay, what I remember.
What comes to your mind first?
It's the people around me.
Yeah?
Like, it's meeting.
Have you dated
different-
somebody?
Not yet.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Ladies, I have a very eligible bachelor, a very high earning individual in the future, in case you're looking for somebody like that.
Okay. So,
I
what
just-
about you? Did you?
No, I haven't. Have I
Oh,
dated? I mean, I wouldn't
course you
construe. I
must
wouldn't
have.
construe most of what I've. I mean, I haven't been in a committed relationship since I've been here, but I've dated a lot of people. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, I've met some
amazing.
beautiful people here, man. I've met some fantastic people here. Like, and I believe one of the strengths of a university like this is the people that you inevitably surround yourself with.
True.
And some of the most smart, some of the most disciplined, some of the most hardworking, some of the most determined people that I've ever come across, some of the most surprising people that I've ever come across have been from this, and I'm forever grateful to the GS, the School of General Studies, and the whole community as a whole. Like, I want to give back as much as I can while I'm here, and that this podcast is a manifestation of that, you know. Columbia has been quite a ride for me, and I'm glad I met somebody like you on the very first day. You keep me inspired on a whole different level, man. Like, I feel like I come across as a very arrogant git, if anything, and then you balance the energy out with your humility when we interact in front of the camera. But yeah, I'm so glad that I met somebody who has such a nice vision of things, who has such a profound view of the world.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, no, man, it's been a pleasure. Honestly, Suhas, what a good talk. I had such a good time doing it with you, man.
Same
I hope
here,
to see you.
likewise.
I honestly hope to have you here soon with more to talk about. I hope you like achieve a massive graph higher than that of India's.
Please invite me again then.
Yeah. If you manage to trump India's population graph, then you've done well, my friend. Your achievements have surpassed. Hey, how many kids do you plan on having?
That's
None.
okay.
He's impotent. Pleasure, Suhas.
That's something.
I hope to have you here soon again.